Okay, so to be respectful of everybody's time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm so excited that you guys chose to join us today for our visit. My name is Laura Gerhold, and I serve as the Chief Advisor for Aerospace Engineering here at the University of Illinois. I'm perfectly happy that you guys choose to keep your cameras off and your mics muted, but I do want to let you know this is a casual visit, so if a question comes up, please feel free. You can either unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can put it in the chat, and I'll try to keep an eye on that as I go through. I'm going to talk about a lot of different topics throughout the course of this session, and so I'll try to stop at the end of each kind of section to see if you have any questions specific to that thing that I've just spoken about. If there are questions that I don't cover, at the end there'll be time to ask any additional questions that you might have, okay? So we'll go ahead and get started. I want to start by telling you a little bit about aerospace at Illinois. So I've been with the department for 12 years. The department currently has 530 undergraduate students and approximately 30 faculty and specialized faculty teaching in the department. We are looking to have approximately 160 students in our freshman class for the fall of 2021. And we are housed in Talbot Laboratory, which Talbot Laboratory currently is going through an expansion. So starting in the fall, our expansion will actually be open for students. It's actually going to have lab space for our composite manufacturing lab and also a state-of-the-art mission control and CubeSat manufacturing lab. So for students who are working on any of our CubeSat projects, which I will talk about in a little bit, there'll be a way to actually build, construct, test all of the CubeSats, and then also talk to the CubeSats once they've launched and get information back from them by having our own mission control facility there. So the construction has taken about 2 years, and we are very excited because the exterior is pretty much done. They're finishing off the interior, and they expect to have that done by June, and then we'll be all moved in and ready for the start of fall classes in August. On the other side of Talbot, though, right now we have a brand new campus teaching facility that's being built. It's state-of-the-art. It will have lecture halls ranging from 500 all the way down to classrooms with just 20 seats, and it is also expected to go online in August. So right now, aerospace is kind of the heart of where all the new stuff is happening here on the engineering campus. With students coming in, our curriculum is set up to finish in 4 years, and so the basic layout of the aerospace curriculum is it's 128 credit hours. The first 2 years we focus on foundational courses, and then the second 2 years we focus on foundational aerospace information and also applying the aerospace information. So that's going to be taking place in junior and senior year. When students come in as freshmen, they're automatically put into an Introduction to Engineering 100. This course is really to get students acclimated and oriented to campus and all of the campus resources that are available. They're going to be taught by upperclassmen in their major. So upperclassmen in aerospace will teach your Engineering 100 section. And then all aerospace students will also register for A100, which is the Introduction to Aerospace Engineering. And this is a hands-on project-based course. Students work in teams. You'll build both a rocket and an aircraft during the course of the semester, and you'll do flights and launches. This past fall, even with all of the COVID precautions, this class was offered in person, and so it was broken up into small teams, allowing students to come in and work on their project together, and then they did their launches in large open air outdoor spaces. And so we plan to have sections of A100 in the fall in person again. But it's really to help get you introduced to the basic foundational principles of aerospace engineering. In addition to that class, you'll also end up taking your calculus sequence, your physics sequence, chemistry, and usually begin your general education courses. Now, for a lot of students who are coming to the university, you're going to come in with some form of credit, whether that's transfer credit that's dual from a community college near you, dual credit with your high school, AP credit, which is probably the most common, whether you've taken those exams and earned credit for that, and then also A-level or IB credit that you may receive. So for all of the credit that you may have coming into the university, the way we figure out what the best start for you is going to be is during our summer orientation meetings. So I meet individually with all of the incoming freshmen into aerospace over the summer. That will be virtual this coming summer. And so we sit down and we have an approximately 20-minute meeting. And during that session, we go over any credit that you are expecting to have prior to coming to Illinois. In addition, you'll be asked to take online placement exams for the calculus, physics, and chemistry sequence. And so those online placement exams just help give us a good idea of where your best starting point is going to be for most success. I always want students to come in and be successful. That's my first and foremost goal for every single student who walks in the door. And just because you have credit that you've earned from high school, from your AP exam, doesn't always mean that you should take the next course. And so the placement exams really help us figure out what's going to be the best path forward. It's always a one-on-one conversation, and so we come to an agreement based off of your experience. You know best how your classes went. You're going to be able to tell me if your calculus teacher was amazing and you felt really confident in everything that you did. And you're also going to be the one who tells me, I struggled in this course, or I took that course in sophomore year and I maybe don't remember as much as I wish I did. And those are going to help guide our decision-making process. After freshman year, you'll go into sophomore year. You'll have an introduction to aerospace flight mechanics and orbital mechanics, as well as statics, dynamics, thermodynamics, kind of foundational engineering courses. These are courses that are taken not just by aerospace students, but mechanical, civil, industrial, all sorts of different engineering students will be in those courses with you. And then in junior year, we want to make sure that you have a strong understanding of aerospace foundational principles. So we make sure our students take a 2-semester sequence of fluid dynamics, so incompressible and compressible flow. We have them take a 2-semester sequence of structures, so we make sure that you understand both the theory of materials and structures, and then also how to apply those when you're designing any aircraft or spacecraft. And then we have a 2-semester sequence of dynamics and control systems. And so you walk out of junior year really understanding how everything works at a very baseline level. And then in senior year, we have all of the application. So you'll have a 2-semester sequence of senior design, 442 in the fall and A443 in the spring. During that course, you're basically applying all of the knowledge you learned in junior year to a specific either aircraft or spacecraft related project. Each year, the senior design team competition is a little bit different. The instructor gets to pick what the design problem is for that year, and then you'll be working in teams of anywhere from 5 to 7 students in your senior design team. You'll also take lab courses in fluids, structures, and dynamics control systems. So kind of those 3 areas that we talked about in junior year, you're going to then apply them in laboratory courses in senior year. The other thing that happens in senior year is where you get to pick your technical electives. And this is where you really get to dive into what you want to specialize in. So if you tell me that you're really interested in propulsion systems, then I'm going to recommend courses that are going to be focused on that. So it may be electric propulsion, rocket propulsion, courses that may go into combustion engines, courses that are going to go into that fit. You get to choose what your technical electives are. You may decide that you have a very specialized area. You may also decide that you're interested in a couple different areas, and so you could spread out your technical electives among many different areas within the department. So that's kind of the overview of the curriculum. As I said, it's 128 hours. Most of our students are able to easily graduate in 4 years if they're just doing the standard bachelor's degree curriculum. Does anybody have questions about the curriculum at this point? And okay, so beyond the standard curriculum, we also have opportunities for students to explore minors or other areas within the university structure. So minors are by far and away the most common. And a minor is basically 18 to 21 credit hours in a specialized area. And so there are over 100 approved minors on the U of I campus. Some of them are very technical. So computer science is probably the most common for an aerospace student to pursue. But we also have a lot of students pursuing electrical and computer engineering, material science, physics and mathematics are probably the top 5 for technical subject areas. And then we have students who decide to pursue minors that are in non-technical areas. So most commonly there, we have the business administration minor. There's an econ minor that's pretty popular right now. And we also have a computational science and engineering minor that's kind of a bridging gap there. We have a specialized minor called Hoff Technology and Management, and this is a program that is joint between the College of Business and the College of Engineering. And so with that program, students would apply in their sophomore year and begin the minor curriculum in their junior year and do it through the course of their junior and senior year. With that program, it's sponsored by companies, and so industry comes in with real-world problems, and students are put in teams for every single technology management course they take, where you're a mix between engineering and business students trying to come up with a solution. So in addition to presenting to your faculty member or your instructor at the end of the semester, you're also going to present your solution to the company that sponsored the program. And so that's a really great way to kind of build a business engineering connection. And so if you have interest in entrepreneurship or business management or project management, the technology management minor would be a really good addition for you. So minors, as I said, they're more common than double degrees. I would say about 30% of my students will pursue a minor during their time here at Illinois. Far fewer students will pursue a double degree, but this is if you have an area of interest that you're really passionate about and you want to get even more expertise in. So right now, the most common double major with aerospace is econ. I've got 4 students who are doing a dual degree with econ and aerospace. I occasionally will have students who do technical, computer science, electrical or computer engineering joint with aerospace. And usually when students tell me that they want to pursue a dual degree, we sit down and have a conversation about why. And that's going to be the biggest deciding factor, because with a dual degree, it requires a minimum of 30 additional credit hours, and oftentimes it may require even more than that if the degree is super different than aerospace, because you have to meet all of the degree requirements for both majors that you're picking. And that usually means that you're going to spend an extra year in school. And so oftentimes I ask the question of why, because it may be better for you to invest that time and the money into looking at a 1-year master's degree as opposed to a second bachelor's degree. So I think of it this way, that a bachelor's degree is going to open up more opportunities at an entry level for positions, whereas a master's degree, it may not open more opportunities, but it's going to open up higher earning potential opportunities. And so for bang for your buck, if you're going to spend an extra year in investing yourself, you may want a higher earning potential out of that. So that's basically minors and dual degrees. Anybody have questions about minors or dual degrees?
Are degrees in business very common as well in aerospace?
It's not as common to get a dual degree in business. Most of the time with business, a minor is usually enough, and then students will go on. A lot of aerospace companies will provide educational benefits so they can go on and get their MBA online while they're working, and somebody else is going to foot the bill for it. But you don't have to have a bachelor's degree to get your in business to get a master's in business administration. So typically for students who are thinking about doing business, they're just going to pick up a minor. but it's not impossible to do a dual degree in business. Any other questions? How hard would it be for an aerospace student to do a double major with computer science? Okay. So computer science is super competitive here at Illinois, and they're very, very space constrained. So they don't give a whole lot of priority to students who are wanting to do a second degree being computer science. And that's just because they have limited space. Honestly, for computer science, similar to business, I would say a minor is probably going to be enough for you to go off. I have students who will graduate with their aerospace degree, but they get jobs that are titled software engineering because they picked up a minor in it. I also have a lot of students who then choose to go to graduate school to pursue computer science because a lot of your coursework in aerospace is still going to be using computer science and applying computer science stuff. So in a lot of cases, a dual degree may not be super feasible just because computer science is so space constrained. You can always apply for it. I just don't want you to get your hopes up because transferring to get a computer science dual degree can be pretty competitive. But I think that if you're looking at a career that's going to utilize computer science, it's definitely doable with a minor and a few elective courses. So I think that's something you can do. Any other questions about minors? Okay. So the next topic I want to talk about is study abroad. And it sounds a little weird to talk about it now because nobody's studying abroad right now due to COVID. But we do have plans to go back to studying abroad. And so I want you to be aware that those are opportunities that you may be able to take advantage of. For students who are looking to have a global experience, we have several different programs that are available, starting with the shortest, which are faculty-led programs. These typically are anywhere from a week to maybe 3 weeks long. And what they do is they go to a specific location. You're led with a group of your peers from usually it's either your major or the College of Engineering. It depends on the program. And then usually 2 faculty members go on these trips. Within aerospace, we actually have 2 different faculty-led program options. We have that are aerospace specific. We have a program that has run to Brazil. It's focused heavily on aircraft manufacturing because Embraer is based in Sao Paulo. They're the 3rd largest aircraft manufacturer in the world. And so we went down there, met with industry, and also worked on a team project with students from 2 universities there in Sao Paulo, and then also did cultural visits while we were there. So it's a 2-week-long trip. The second faculty-led program that's aerospace specific hasn't actually run with students. It was supposed to run this year, and of course we couldn't, but has been set up in South Africa, and it is more focused on space sciences because they have a lot of satellite development and space science technology based out of South Africa, specifically in the Cape Town region, and again would have cultural visits while you're there. Then we also have a little bit longer if you wanted to go for your summer semester. We have programs where students can go and you can either go take general education courses, or we have an aerospace specific program in France where students would typically go the summer between their junior and senior year. And this would allow them to take courses that are technical in nature, so you would get technical elective credit, and also have a general education course for your cultural visits while you're there. That program runs for 6 weeks while they're in France. And then we have semester-long study abroad opportunities. And this is probably where it's the most flexible. So usually when I meet with students and they express that they have interest in study abroad, the question that I'll ask is if they have a specific location in mind. So because of the curriculum at the sophomore level, almost all of the courses are general enough to just engineering, so statics, dynamics, thermodynamics, a circuits course, those are going to be offered at almost any institution that the College of Engineering has an agreement with. And so it gives you a lot of flexibility. So if a student tells me, for example, they want to go to Spain, I'm going to tell them that sophomore year is the best time to go because Spain doesn't have a huge aerospace program, but they have really good mechanical engineering and electrical and computer science at Madrid and then also in Valencia. And so students can go and take those sophomore level courses, the same courses they would have taken here at Illinois, but they can take them abroad and stay on track with the curriculum. If you are less interested specifically in a location, but more interested in having an aerospace specific experience and going somewhere that has an aerospace program, we have agreements with KTH in Stockholm, Sweden, the University TU Delft in the Netherlands, University of Bristol in the United Kingdom, University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, and ISAE in Toulouse, France. So those 5 programs all have aerospace curriculum, so students could go in either their sophomore or in their junior year. And so for those programs, we kind of figure out which program is going to be the best fit and then which courses you could take there. Study abroad, the biggest things I will say is it doesn't add any time onto your stay because we work it into your curriculum, so you take the same courses and stay on track with your 4-year plan. And then it also typically is incentivized, so the tuition that's charged is range 3 tuition, so it's actually cheaper than if you stayed here on campus. So especially for international or out-of-state students, this can be a significant financial savings to do that. There are other expenses that you may have to incur, so housing and airfare and that kind of thing, but typically students end up spending less for their semester abroad just based off of the tuition. So those are pretty much kind of the overview of study abroad. If you have questions, you can either unmute yourself or put it into the chat. There is a question about international students pursuing aerospace. That percentage is usually somewhere between 15 and 20% of our student population are international students. A lot of times the biggest issue for international students when they're coming in to study aerospace is a lot of the aerospace companies do have restrictions requiring U.S. citizenship for internship or full-time employment. There are a lot of companies that I like to call them aerospace adjacent. So a lot of our students will go work for companies that are closely related to aerospace or aerospace suppliers to start their career if they want to stay here in the U.S. So, yeah. So yeah, and there was a question about Itar Restriction. So yeah, so that's usually the issue for international students, and I'm always happy to put you in touch. If you want to send me an email at the end, I'll put my email address in the chat, but I can always put you in touch with some of our current international students so that they can answer questions for you. Are there any other questions about study abroad experiences? There was a follow-up question for about internships for international students in commercial aviation. Most of our large commercial aviation companies have funding that's coming from sources that would still require U.S. citizenship. It's more likely that you would look at small general aviation, so not commercial aviation, not like your Boeing type companies, but more like small Piper aircraft, Beechcraft. Those companies may be more likely to have opportunities without the citizenship requirements. Alrighty, well, I'm going to continue on. So we've talked a lot about curricular things that you can add into your experience. And so I did want to talk about research, which is an opportunity where students can pursue research for academic credit. A lot of times if students are thinking about going to graduate school, we would encourage them to explore research. We have a course in aerospace called A298. It's at the sophomore level. And what this course does is basically pairs undergraduate students with graduate mentors for a semester-long project. During the course of the semester, students would be learning about how to do a literature review, how to give a poster presentation, all of the lab safety requirements, and just kind of getting the feel of what research is really like to see if it's for them. Because until you experience it, sometimes it's like it's this nebulous thing that you hear about and you're like, I should do that. And then you do it and you're like, I don't think I want to do that. Or you're like, oh my God, I love this and I want to do this longer. And that's why we try to put that early in the sophomore year, so that you have time if you decide that you want to continue pursuing research. You can do so in your junior and senior year. We have a couple different opportunities at those levels. We have first our summer opportunity program. So it's called Uauc. It stands for Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program. It's funded jointly by Illinois Space Grant and the faculty members in the department. During that time frame of the summer, for 10 weeks, students would work with a faculty member's research group, basically working 40 hours a week. So it's basically an internship, but it's focused on research. So you're working for 40 hours a week for those 10 weeks in the summer, and getting that in-depth research experience in a lab. And then we also, during the academic year, offer credit for, we call it A397 and A497, so 397 for juniors and 497 for seniors. And this is where you can work with a faculty member in their research group on a project, and the project may be varied. It just depends on who has opportunities available. So a lot of times I encourage students to reach out to faculty members early if they think that they're, interested in doing research in that subject area. Reach out to those faculty members and start building a relationship, and see what opportunities will become available. Students can use research credit, so the 397 and 497 credit, for up to 3 hours of technical elective credit towards your degree requirements. So while you're doing research, you can actually be making progress towards your degree requirements as well. So it's a really great way to kind of get yourself introduced to research. And especially if you're thinking about going to graduate school, it's a really great introduction to what that's going to be like, and you get to make connections and network with faculty members that you may be working with. So any questions about undergrad research before I start talking about graduate school? Okay. So with our graduate program, we have several different options. We have a one-year professional master's in aerospace engineering. We also have a MEng program, which is a master's of engineering in aerospace systems engineering. And then we have a master's with thesis, and then we have a PhD program. So with all of those programs, there are different opportunities, and it kind of depends on what your long-term goal is. So a lot of times students may stay for the one-year professional master's or the master's of engineering program if they just want to get some advanced training. It's basically both of those programs are focused more on curriculum. So you're going to take classes to kind of specialize before you go work in industry. And the end goal in that is usually industry. A lot of times I would encourage students, if they're thinking about doing a professional master's, to also be applying for jobs at the same time, because most of our aerospace companies, and most large companies anymore, will offer what we call educational benefits. And what they do is they will pay, it may be a certain capped amount per semester or per year, or it may be that they'll say, we'll pay for this whole program. It just depends on the company, but they will pay for your school, because what they see is it's an investment. You're getting more education, and you're going to be a more trained employee for their company, and so they're willing to pay for that. So a lot of times you can find somebody else to foot the bill, which is really nice, especially when you're finishing up your undergrad. With the master's, non-thesis, and the MEng program, they are offered both in person and also fully online. So it would allow you to go and work a full-time job and then take courses part-time if you want, or you can stay enrolled as a full-time student in person and complete the program. It's set up to be completed within 1 year. For the master's with thesis, this is usually anywhere from 2 to 3 years, and it it's really focused on research. So you are going to have classes that you have to take, but you're also going to be doing research, and at the end you're going to have to write a thesis, and that's going to be how you receive your master's degree. This is really geared towards students who want to work either in industry, more in research and development, or thinking about going on to pursue a PhD program. And so for those students who are wanting to do that, we want you to find a faculty advisor. And typically you'll find a faculty advisor within the program, and either you'll have an RA, which is a research assistantship, or a TA, which is a teaching assistantship. And that's going to give you a tuition waiver and usually a stipend. So you're basically not having to pay to go to school, but you're working while you're in school, and that's going to be how you're covering the cost of your master's program, and giving yourself a stipend to live off of. We do have some students who will go direct PhD, and that just depends on the faculty advisors. Sometimes they'll have grants where they're specifically looking for somebody to work on a PhD program, and if you're a really, really stellar undergraduate student, you could be competitive for the direct PhD program. Yes, there is a question, and that's the next thing that I was going to talk about. So the question in the chat was, does Aero offer a 5-year master's program? So innately, the 1-year professional master's with a 4-year bachelor's degree would be a 5-year master's program, but we do have a joint program, the BSMS 5-year program, and what that allows is students in their junior year, if they want to transition to the 5-year BSMS program, it allows them to reduce their technical elective requirement by 1 course, so 3 credit hours from their undergraduate requirement, and that way they can start working on their master's courses in their senior year spring semester. The goal, again, is still to finish in 5 years with that program, but it does reduce that requirement by 1 course. And then it also technically reduces the 4 hours of free elective, although most students will come in with so much free elective that this doesn't necessarily apply. But if you were missing free elective and you did the 5-year BSMS program, it would allow you to not take any additional free electives at that point. With all of our programs for students who are doing their undergraduate degree here at Illinois, whether they're choosing to do the 5-year BSMS, whether you're choosing to do apply to the master's with thesis or the master's non-thesis or the master's of engineering, we have something called simple entry. And what this means is that as long as your GPA, your overall GPA is above a 3.0 and your aerospace technical GPA is above a 3.25, you will be offered automatic admission, meaning once you submit your application, you're accepted into the program. At that point, it waives the requirement for the GRE, it waives the requirements for letters of recommendation, and so you basically, it's simple entry. You really just have to complete the paperwork, and as long as you meet those GPA requirements, you'll be admitted into the program. So, questions about graduate school or any of our graduate programs?
Can you explain the 1-year master's where the company will foot the bill? What did you mean by that?
So if you decided to do the Master's of Aerospace Engineering non-thesis, so it's just 32 credit hours, which is taken over 2 semesters, those courses, if you were to stay for 1 year full-time, you would pay tuition. And if you decided that you wanted to go to industry instead, most companies, I'll use an example. So if you went to go work at Rolls-Royce, Rolls-Royce has educational benefit package, and it will pay up to a certain amount. It's been a while since I've actually talked to somebody about what that dollar amount is. I want to say it's somewhere around like $8,000 to $10,000 per semester for you to take courses. So for students who are doing that, while working full-time, what you would do instead of completing the master's in 1 year, you would be working full-time, you would take 1 or 2 courses per semester, The company would pay your tuition, so you're not paying out of pocket. And then you would complete the master's program. Typically, then it would spread out over 2 or 3 years. It kind of depends on you and what you want to do. So sometimes with our students who are doing that, they may take courses in fall, spring, and summer to try to catch up and finish the program in 2 years. Other students may want to spread it out and spread it over, 3 years. It's their choice, and it kind of depends on what their company offers. But the idea behind it is instead of you paying to get your master's degree, your company is paying for you to get your master's degree. That make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about the graduate programs? Okay. So graduate school is definitely one path. And I would say approximately 20% of our graduating students will go to grad school. The other 80%, so the majority of our students, are going to go to industry when they graduate. And so we encourage our students to get involved in internship and co-op opportunities early and often. And so that's probably the first thing that I would say is my best piece of advice is anytime that there is a career fair or a company that's coming to campus, wherever you choose to go, whether you come to Illinois or you go somewhere else, take advantage of those opportunities to network and take advantage of applying to any of their programs that they have, their internship or co-op programs. A lot of companies may not hire freshmen for internships, but if you don't even apply, you've self-selected yourself out of that opportunity. Typically, in non-COVID times, out of our freshman class, usually about 15% of our freshmen will have an internship opportunity in their first summer. So they exist, they're out there. It's a little bit different now with all of the restrictions because a lot of the companies switched their internship or co-op programs to virtual and aren't taking on quite as many students in that virtual environment. But I do expect those numbers to go back once they go back to in-person opportunities for that. And a lot of companies still are taking interns even in the virtual environment, which is nice. With internships, typically they're going to happen over the summer. There are a few companies that may have an internship that's for a fall or a spring semester, but it's more common that they're going to be just over the summer semester. Co-ops are a little bit different. So with co-ops, usually what you're doing is you are going to work for the company for a semester, then you're coming back and taking classes on campus for a semester, and then you're going back to work for that company again like the next semester. And so it's rotational. A lot of times with co-ops, it may add time onto your graduation date, but it's usually worthwhile because in the end, a co-op, they're investing a lot more time and training into you, and as long as you're doing well at the company, they're going to be invested in offering you a full-time offer because they've already put so much training into you and they know the quality of your work that it makes sense that they would want you to come on and stay after you graduate. There was a question in the chat that asked, where do students typically co-op or internship at? So you're definitely going to see all of the different NASA centers take our students, Boeing, Rolls-Royce, Collins Aerospace, SpaceX, Blue Origin, basically any of your major players, GE Aviation. They're all going to come here to recruit. Northrop and Lockheed both come. And so you're going to have a lot of large aerospace companies, and a lot of those companies are recruiting for many of their locations. So a lot of times when I say Boeing, people think about airplanes, but Boeing also has space research going on down in Texas, and so that division may be a place that you might go work on the space side of things. So it just depends on where those positions are located. But a lot of our students will be spread out across the country during those times that they're interning or doing co-ops. There aren't quite as many here in the Midwest, but there are still some. So Collins Aerospace and Collins Aerospace and Rolls-Royce and GE Aviation have locations in the Midwest. Occasionally people go to Boeing in St. Louis. very occasionally we'll have people at Boeing headquarters in Chicago. There's just not as many engineering opportunities there. United Airlines also takes some engineers at their headquarters up in Chicago as well. But those are all of your major aerospace companies are going to take our students on for internships, co-ops, and then of course full-time employment. With that said, to help distinguish you among your peers when you're applying for internships and co-ops, being a great student is important. I'm not going to lie when I say like they're going to look at your GPA first, and that's going to be one of those factors that on your resume you want to be a strong student. But they're also going to want to know what else you're doing besides classes. No recruiter is going to want you to tell them about your calculus class. They're going to assume by your GPA that you're doing well, and that's great, but they don't want to talk about it. They want to talk about what makes you different. And this is going to be where joining student organizations is how you're going to stand out compared to everybody else in your class. So here at the university, there are over 1,900 now student organizations. We shorten that to registered student organizations, or RSOs, is what we usually refer to them by. So if you hear me say RSO, it's registered student organization. And the idea behind RSOs is this is a place where people who have similar interests and passions outside of majors can gather together and either socialize or work on projects together, whatever it might be. So there are definitely registered student organizations that are purely social. My favorite when I was an undergrad was October Lovers. You just went and picked apples and picked pumpkins and drank cider and called it a good day. It was wonderful, but definitely didn't necessarily meet any requirements or build technical skills. It was more social. Within aerospace, we have specific RSOs that are very technical. And there is a question in the chat, do Itar restrictions also limit access to certain labs or research opportunities? And this would also pertain to RSOs as well. So typically with Itar at the undergraduate level, this would not play a factor in any of our student organizations. They fall under an educational category with Itar restrictions. There are some research labs, but typically those are all geared towards graduate student research. Undergraduate students wouldn't be at that level where they would be working on Itar restricted materials or projects, and so they can still gain good experience in our undergraduate research programs for that. So at the undergraduate level, no. At the graduate level, there are some Itar restricted projects that our graduate students are working on that would limit international students. For our RSOs at the undergraduate level, we have 9 housed here in aerospace. Some of them are social. And so we have MAero, which is for minority students in aerospace. We have Women in Aerospace, which is to build and support a network for women. We have a student chapter of AIAA, which is the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. This is the professional society that kind of overarches the aerospace industry. So a lot of students will join AIAA, and that'll be a professional society that will continue after they graduate. We have Illinois Space Society, which is part of SEDS, which is a space organization. And so for those are kind of our bigger social groups. Both AIAA and Illinois Space Society also will branch into professional networking, so they have conferences that they'll attend, and they'll also do technical projects. And so this is where students can start getting involved in hands-on projects. Then we also have just project-based RSOs. So we have Student Space Systems, which builds high-powered, high-altitude rockets. We have Student Aircraft Builders, which they're building a 2-place single-engine aircraft out at Willard Airport. We have Design, Build, Fly, which is part of an AIAA competition to build an RC aircraft. And so each spring in April, they have a national competition to fly their RC aircraft and compete against other collegiate schools. And so all of these organizations kind of allow students to pick and choose activities that they're interested in. We have Illinois Robotics in Space. So for students who are more interested in autonomous control vehicles or robotics, it's a great way to kind of branch into that and do a competition robot. So those are housed here in aerospace. But then we also have RSOs that are in the College of Engineering, and a lot of our students may have interests outside of aerospace as well. So for example, if you're really passionate about robotics, you may want to go over to the ECE department, so Electrical and Computer Engineering, and they have a FIRST Robotics group. And so they focus more on the fundamentals of robotics and really dive into those topics just broadly. We also have a lot of students who go over to mechanical engineering to join the Formula One team. The Society of Automotive Engineers, SAE, has several different competitions, including the Formula One. And so they design and build high-speed cars. They also have different competitions for different vehicle types. And so if you have a passion for automotive design, a lot of aerospace students will go over there. Both last year and this year, the Formula One Motorsports team is led by an aerospace student, even though it's housed in the mechanical department. So we try to make sure that all of our student organizations are fairly interdisciplinary, and you can find organizations that just follow your passion. And the other really great part about all of these is you can join as a freshman. There's no prerequisite knowledge that you need to have. You can get involved from day one and start learning very hands-on, tangible skills that are then transferable. So then when you're applying for an internship or a co-op experience and you're talking to a recruiter and they're like, okay, well, tell me what you like to do, you can talk about your experience within those student projects and how you've joined a specific team. Like maybe you're on the sub-team for autonomous control, or maybe you're on the body design for the Formula One car. All of those are great things that kind of distinguish you, because not every student is on that same team, or not every student is doing that same student organization. And so it's a really great way to build experience and give you a unique opportunity to develop your skills. So there is a question in the chat. Is there an airplane spotting student organization? There is not that I know of here at the university. There is the Institute of Aviation, which is a flight training program. It's run by Parkland College here in town, and they're housed at Willard Airport. And they, I believe, have a flight team that one of the actual teams within the flight team competition is aircraft recognition. So if you wanted to join the flight team and do something like that, you are welcome to join Parkland's flight team. You're also welcome to take flight classes if any of you are interested in learning how to fly. The Institute of Aviation does offer flight classes, and students at the University of Illinois can do what's called concurrent enrollment at Parkland College to take those courses. And then on the topic of projects and extracurriculars, does UAUC have a team that competes in Spaceport America? So we don't currently have a team that is competing in Spaceport America. We do have a team from Illinois Space Society that's working on their IREC competition, but right now we don't have anybody at Spaceport America. So, any other questions that you guys might have? Okay, so that's pretty much the end of my spiel. I've talked at you for 50 minutes, and I feel like that's probably a lot of information, but I did want to share a couple different things with you. One of the positives, the silver linings of virtual visits, in my personal opinion, is you don't have to take all of the information in at the same time. So I'm super thrilled that you guys joined today's aerospace discussion, but I know that there may be other topics that you have interest in, and so there are going to be other opportunities for virtual visits. So the first link I'm sending you, this is for the campus admissions office, and so they're going to share information about just like sending over your transcripts and the whole admission process and finishing accepting your offers and all those types of kind of details that you need to know about that are more kind of nitty-gritty at the college level. And so the admissions office, they're going to talk a little bit more about financial aid. They'll talk more about housing opportunities, and I'm happy to answer like general questions, but during their virtual visits, they'll have more opportunities to talk about campus-wide programs like the housing and financial aid and stuff. In addition, the second link I'm going to send you is actually for the Granger College of Engineering visits. And so there are several different opportunities on here. Some of them, so if you go to that website, the department visit that you just did is definitely listed there. But you also have opportunities to do student-led tours. So they have a virtual tour with the student tour guides here. They have several different student panels that'll be happening between now and the end of April. And so you have the opportunity to kind of hear from the student perspective about what it's like going to school here at Illinois, and ask questions about their experiences as well. So I just wanted to share those kind of opportunities with you so that you are aware of them if you weren't already. And then I, again, want to open it back up for questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free. As I said before, you can unmute yourself or you can put the questions in the chat. I'm also going to go ahead and give you my email. So if you have questions that maybe you don't want to ask out loud or in the group, that's perfectly fine. You can always email me questions and I'm happy to answer those.
For co-ops, do we have to still pay tuition while we're doing a co-op, or is it not paid for by the college?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that a co-op would work is we would have students enroll in a course called Engineering 310. It's a 0 credit hour course, and all it does is hold your student status. And so this is so that you have access to all the same resources, your email's still activated. It's about $500 to be enrolled in that course, and most companies, if you tell the company that your university requires you to take it, they will actually pay the $500 fee. So you're not actually paying for anything during that time. The biggest reason why you want to enroll in the Engineering 310 if you're doing a co-op in the fall or the spring semester is when you come to the university, your tuition is frozen for 4 years. So you get the tuition rate that you pay the first day you walked in the door for 4 years. After that, if you roll into an extra year, your tuition rate increases to whatever the current tuition rate is for that 5th year. If you enrolled in the Engineering 310 and showed that you were in a university certified co-op or internship experience during a fall or spring term, then there's a little form that you fill out in the registrar's office, and they grandfather in the tuition rate that you had for the previous 4 years. So that's the benefit. Like, you're not going to pay tuition during the time that you're doing the co-op, but you want to keep the tuition for the extra semester or potentially year that you need to stay on campus to complete your degree requirements.
And when you were talking about semester-long studying abroad, about how many aerospace students actually take up that offer?
So typically in any semester, I usually would have anywhere from 10 to 15 students studying abroad, and that's typically at the sophomore or junior level. I would say it's probably, lately it's been about a 50-50 split the last several years between sophomore and junior year. So it's not an overwhelming number. Not going to lie, I want that number to grow and grow and grow because I think study abroad is amazing. But that's just me. I maybe lead our faculty-led study abroad programs, so I think they're great. But I know that there are a lot of things that students are worried about and why they may choose not to go abroad. So it's not an overwhelming number out of our programs. But you also have to realize the College of Engineering will send several hundreds of students each semester abroad between all of the different departments. And a lot of times, the best example I can give you is Madrid, Spain became really, really popular. So for the last 2 years prior to this year, there were like 50 Illinois students from the College of Engineering who all went to Madrid in the spring semesters because it was a super popular program. So you may not be with other aerospace students, but you may be with other students from the campus. There is a question in the chat. Can you elaborate on the placement tests we will take over the summer? Like if I'm trying to transfer, okay. So the placement tests are online and they are solely to give us, you're required to take them, whether you have credit for the course or not. So you'll take math, physics, and chemistry. If you haven't completed your foreign language requirement, we'll also ask you to take a foreign language placement exam. Foreign language requirement, if you've taken at least 3 years in high school, you're satisfying your foreign language requirement. If you go to a school where English is not the primary language that the school is taught in, and you went there for at least 1 year of high school, you don't need to worry about foreign language. So those placement exams, they're online. You take them at your convenience. We ask that you take them at least 2 weeks prior to your orientation dates. Orientation dates will happen in June. And the reason we ask for that is just to make sure that we get your scores and have them. Typically, as long as you take them within 2 days, I can see your score in the system. But the idea behind it is really to just make sure that, for example, if you took an AP exam and you scored a 4 on the calculus AP exam, but then you got a really low score on the math placement exam, I'm probably going to recommend that you go back and maybe retake and strengthen up those foundational skills in calculus before moving on to the next course. The other option like that you may have is you get a 5 on the AP exam and you have a knock it out of the park score, like a 98 or 100 on the math placement exam. Then I'm going to be perfectly comfortable having that conversation about taking a more advanced math class. If you have transfer credit from a dual credit course or community college course, that's something that's completely different. While you're still required to take the placement exam, you've earned that credit. I may still have the conversation with you about whether or not you want to retake it. Chemistry for aerospace, as long as you understand how a chemical reaction works, if you have credit, I'm probably not going to recommend you go back and take a chemistry course. Math is a little bit different and physics is a little bit different just because it is such a foundational sequence of courses that everything is going to list that as a prerequisite, that we want to make sure that you have really, really strong math and physics placements. So, and then there's another question. Are there any study abroad opportunities in Japan and Korea? Okay, so I just reviewed right before COVID hit a university in Tokyo, and so there is an aerospace curriculum there. As far as I know, once things open back up, I fully expect us to be able to send students there because they have so many equivalent courses to what we require, but we have not previously sent students to that university. In Korea, there isn't an aerospace-specific program, but there are some general engineering programs there, especially with Korea. I've sent aerospace students typically over the summer because they have a research program there where students can go and conduct research and get technical elective credit while they're doing that. I haven't sent anybody for a fall or a spring semester, and typically, and this is something I didn't mention, so it's leading to a great thought, it's usually the language requirement that's the barrier there. So all of the programs that have aerospace-specific curriculum so far, the 5 that I mentioned before, either English is the primary language or the courses are all taught in English. So there's no language requirement for our students who are going there. A lot of the Korean and Japanese programs, the courses are not taught in English. And so for most of our students, they would have to have a minimum of 4 years of the language to even qualify, and really just proficiency to feel comfortable to take those courses. That's why the summer research program is great, because almost all of the faculty who participate speak English fluently and are fine taking students who are maybe not fluent in the language. Are things looking good for in-person? Yes. So I say this only because I have a meeting tomorrow, and we got an announcement today that they are really, really pushing that they want as many of our courses to be offered in person. With that said, they also want us to still offer the opportunity for online as well, because we know that maybe not all of our students will feel comfortable or be able to come to campus in the fall, but the campus itself is planning to have the majority of our courses, and specifically the College of Engineering is really pushing for every single department to offer every single required course, meaning if it's required in the curriculum, they want it to have an in-person option as well as a virtual option for students to pursue in the fall. They do expect that we will continue with all of our COVID mitigation plans. So right now, the University of Illinois has a very robust testing system. So students are required to test twice a week. It's a saliva-based test. I'm required to test as well because I work in my office. And so in order to enter into the buildings, they're required to test, and masks will still be required in the fall. That's fully, we're expecting all of those same precautions to stay in place. And access to buildings will still be only if you have a negative test within the previous 4 days will you be able to access your in-person classes. Rather than taking the language courses for 4 years, is it possible to get tested for proficiency to gain access? Yes. So short answer, if you didn't take high school language for 4 years or get to the 4th level, but you are proficient in a language, the university offers proficiency exams in a large number of non-English languages. And so you are more than welcome to take the proficiency exams if you are fluent in another language, and that would satisfy the language requirement for study abroad as well. So typically we would ask people to take a placement exam if they're not sure. Like, let's say you took 2 years of high school Spanish and you're not sure whether or not you should start in the 3rd level or go back and take the 2nd level. That's typically when we're like, you should take the placement exam so we know where to start you. If you are proficient in a language and you've been speaking it at home for years, or you lived abroad for a while, or whatever the case may be, but you're proficient, you're not required to take the placement exam. You can just jump straight into a proficiency exam and see how that goes. You can take proficiency exams on this campus anytime, and placement exams are only required before the summer semester. For languages, if you don't take a placement exam the summer before your freshman year, you would just jump into the proficiency exam whenever you're looking to take it. So. Any other questions? I do want to be respectful of your time. It's 4:04 here in Central Time Zone. I do want to thank you again if you're joining us, especially from time zones that are significantly different than ours. I really genuinely appreciate your time and commitment to learning about the program. Alrighty. Well, if nobody else has any questions, you are free to leave the group. I will stay in this chat just for a little while longer in case anybody wants to stick around and ask a question. But please feel free if you have questions that come up later, especially as you're getting closer to your decision. For those of you who've been admitted, please feel free to reach out and email me any questions that you might have. I'm always happy to schedule a one-on-one Zoom and answer anything that you have, or answer via email, whatever works best for you.